Hi guys, Champagne Friday again. And this Friday we're going to do something really special. It's not me who is the guy in the middle, in the center. It's Björn Stjärna, the guy with this,
the beanie.
the same haircut as me, so he's hiding it because we look too much the same, except for the beard. Well, it's actually a little bit of a surprise for you.
Yep.
Because I just told him now and he got slightly nervous. But we're going to do a blind tasting, champagne blind tasting. And why is that? Yes, it's mostly because it's fun, but also it's very educational. You become a lot better in understanding every detail of champagne by doing blind tastings. And for my last or latest book, Champagne Magnum Opus.
Latest is good to say. It will not be the last.
No,
hopefully.
No, you're right. It might be some about cava and spumante and things. You would never know. Anyway, I started to pinpoint a little bit the different steps. So I made this, what do you call it?
Tasting ladder or tasting?
No, it's not in the book.
Methodology.
The
seven tasting steps. I think you
seven steps
called it in your book.
Exactly like that. And it's not the steps you need to take in that order, but you need to take all these steps in different parts of concentration, different focus on them, and it might be one of them that is your strength. You might be much better in pinpointing the year or the age than the type of producer, or the other way around. We have a friend who's extremely good at just looking at colors to have clues
and
from
some very
that.
focused on grape or grape proportions
Exactly.
As the first things. Yeah, so different styles.
But I will say that the most common mistake is to put too much focus on grape proportions. So I remember one of my best tastings ever. I did one mistake. And the guy who brought me all the 17 champagnes, he said, it's so impressive, all your tasting, except you actually missed very, very broad when you made this, because I found a Blanc de Noir, a Bollinger Vieille Vin Française. It was a Salon. So it was a Blanc de Blanc, and I guessed it was a Blanc de Noir, and that was the only mistake. So to shorten that story, there might be other things, other details in the champagne that is stronger, more important than the grape variety. So that was basically why I started these 7 steps. My first step is to make an overall impression of the quality.
Yep.
Approximately, where are we? Is this a simple non-vintage? Is this a really great, or is it something in between? That's the first reaction that I get. Then it's grower or house. Sometimes it's not very obvious. Sometimes it is very obvious. If you have a very distinct characteristics from a single village, or a very strong intensity, but not this elegant or multifaceted focus that you might get from specific blendings. Then the age, that's the third step. Then, what was the fourth? The grapes, no. It was vinification methods. We put that before.
Yep.
You could do the grapes before, but normally oak barrels, malolactic fermentation, stainless steel, those kind of things.
Yep.
And then the grapes. The
Yeah.
fifth, geography.
Yeah, where
are we in the region?
True.
Conclusion.
Yeah.
So
Let's summarize it. Seven different steps.
here we are.
Oh, look, beautiful color. Wow. Splendid.
So we start with the first, the general quality level.
Well, just by looking at it, and you can see that it has some years to it, but all of a sudden, when you put your nose in it, you can feel the freshness, although it's very mature. So it for sure is a really good to superior quality. That is something that I have to say, because you don't have those oxidized notes. It's, of course, it's very you know, the deep fruits, you know, the apples, you have a lot of tar, you have leathery notes and those kind of things. The valley floor, you know, the sous-bois, like the Burgundians talk about, but also the freshness. Yeah. So that's a sign for me of really good quality to start with, without have tasted it yet. On the palate, visually, when we look at it, it's very small, very lazy and hazy bubbles.
Yeah.
First, they was almost not visible at all, but when you look really, really carefully, you see very small, very lazy bubbles.
But on the palate, it's quite
Super fresh.
Yeah.
Super fresh.
Yeah.
It's that tingling on the tip of the tongue, which is also, for me, a sure sign that, again, linked with what I had experienced by the nose. You have the freshness, you have those tingling sensation on the palate, which for sure is what we have to put in consideration also when we talk about overall impressions at the end is the provenance. So this bottle, is in a great shape, I have to say. So yeah, great, good to great quality level, I would say.
Yeah. Grower house. Any obvious?
Probably not something very obvious, but probably since it's that fresh and that multifaceted and complex, I would say a house rather than a grower, style-wise. For now, I would say.
Yeah. Well, I think you're right in both. I help you a little bit here. It's a small house. Almost a few villages, almost like a grower, but a house. And average quality, general quality of this one is, as you say, it's a very, very good. The provenance is superb. It's from a great cellar. The freshness is really there.
I suppose that this has been in your cellar for quite some time as well.
No, it's quite new.
Fairly new, okay.
Quite new in my own cellar.
Maybe bought in an auction close to us. We don't know.
No. But from a very great cellar and just received it. But the age, where are we there?
Well, age is always something tricky when we talk about champagnes. And here, as I talked about, we have that developed maturity, we have the superior freshness on the palate, which could be linked also to a Vinification version, of course. But for me, I would be surprised if we're not, say, mid-80s to early 80s somewhere on this one, style-wise.
He's good. He's got a good teacher.
Great teacher.
It's correct.
Super.
So it's and style-wise, we wait a little bit with the vintage. We move on to vinification.
Okay. Do we have something obvious when it comes to oak fermentation or not? Is it only stainless steel? If we talk about oak barrels, we talk, of course, about the style of Krug and the style of Bollinger. I don't think that we necessarily have that here. I think it's stainless steel or a small proportion of very old barrels. But something says to me that it's non-mallow going on because the freshness.
That was the first mistake. It's mallow.
It is mallow.
Malolactic
And
fermentation. And
so then it could be the vintage that plays
the
the trick.
vintage and the provenance that makes it more acidic and fresher.
Right.
So yeah, it's like that. And I'm not really sure if there might be some old barrels for a part of it, but I would say for 90% sure, it's only stainless steel. Since I haven't tasted it myself before. So,
Premier.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Grape varieties?
Well, that's always tricky. There's nothing screaming Chardonnay, and there's nothing screaming Pinot other than it's quite oily and rich. Could be linked with the vintage and the age. But I think it's not a pure champagne, is it? I think it's a blend with Pinot dominance.
It's great.
I hope so.
60 Pinot Noir, 40 Chardonnay.
Great. Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
From where?
Where is it from? Okay.
So then we start normally to say, is it from a Grand Cru? Is it from a Premier Cru? Or is it from the other regions? Is it from the outskirts of the Marne Valley? Is it from Cézanne? Is it from Aube? Those are the most obvious things that we look upon when we have a champagne like this. starting there, and then we try to, if we have a specific village that is showing off very clearly. Since it's a blend of grapes, it's never as, even if it's a monocru, it's more tricky to find that when you have a blend of grapes. It's more obvious when you have a pure Chardonnay or pure Pinot Noir from a single vintage.
Makes the guessing game easier, yeah. But well, if it's 60-40 Pinot dominance, then we have a lot of the really big ones and a lot of vintage champagnes that has this proportions historically. And since I don't feel the Chardonnay and we have the Pinot, then I'm trying to locate in my mind where that might be. I'm a little bit puzzled though, because it feels a little bit old school in a way, or is it because of the age? And you said, you gave me a hint of a small house. I was thinking in the styles of, Alfred Gratien, but then we know that the chef de cave and his father, the previous chef de cave, the Jägers, have always used barrels, so I will leave that out.
Yeah, and also no malo.
No malo as well,
malo.
so yeah. But I don't think it's that. I think it's a house that is actually situated in one of the two cities, in Reims or in Epernay.
No, smaller place.
Smaller place.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's almost impossible to find it.
But since I feel the Pinot, is it in a Pinot Grand Cru?
It's not a Grand Cru.
It's not a Grand Cru?
It's a Premier Cru. It might be blended, but it's Haut-Villers, Champignon, which are the two main places. So the producer, almost impossible to say, it's Goubillard.
Thank you very much for that one.
Yeah, it was not
if you gave me 100 years, I would never get there.
No, it's a
Goubillard.
typical
Okay. So
Goubillard.
Haut-Villers and Champignon.
Yeah. And it might be some other villages that they also, the relatives are coming from. There's one branch in Pierry and one in Haut-Villers, and sometimes they have grapes from the two.
Origins.
At this time, it's tricky to find exactly the origins. But anyway, Premier Cru grapes.
Yeah.
And from the research I did, no Meunier, but it could be 5 to 10%. Normally that they have, but I haven't found it this time. So conclusion, and the only thing is you need to guess the year in the 80s that gives this high acidity and freshness without non-malo.
So I said mid
with
to
malolactic.
early 80s, and we have to rule out 84 because it's such an odd. I only think I've tasted like two vintage wines from that vintage ever. I think 81 is also one of those odd birds, but 82 is always linked, in the fame of fine wine, since it was a great Bordeaux vintage. We have some really superb 82s, but when you say that with the freshness, I would rather go for 83 if we look at the numbers.
Okay, we cut there. It's exactly what it is. It's a Goubillard 83.
Yeah, you see the worn label, and there's
There
the
it
83. There we go.
Well done.
83
Good
Friday.
start on this Friday. Now we're going to taste some other wines from other places around the globe.
Cheers.
Cheers.